everyone. My name is Susie, and I'm one of the co-founders of Imagine This Women's International Film Festival. Thank you so much for joining us. Right now, I'm going to go around and ask everyone to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about their project. We're going to start with Athena. If you can just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your project.
Hi everyone, so I'm Athena Mandis. I'm the writer, director and co-producer of the short film Losing Grace. Losing Grace is a film that looks at the aftermath of domestic abuse and particularly what happens to children inside that reality. But we decided to tell it through a kind of poetic, thriller-esque kind of style. And also in the last week we've got a producer on board and we're turning it into a feature. So that's kind of been an amazing achievement about the project, which we shot on a little island off the coast of Great Britain, in between Ireland and the UK, called the Isle of Man, which was very challenging for weather conditions. But yeah, so it's we're very excited to be part of this festival.
Oh, thank you. And Isabel?
Hello, I'm Isabel Schnall. I wrote, directed, produced, and I'm starring in The Perfect Week, which is, I've sort of been toying with calling it a dramedy or a romantic dramedy, but it's a short about a girl who goes through a really horrific breakup and her friend challenges her to go on a different date every day for 7 days. So it's silly and goofy and kind of highlights ridiculousness of dating, but also I think has a lot of heart, and there's some sad moments, and just kind of wrapped into one, just the realness of, going through a breakup, trying to be a person in the world, trying to care for yourself at the same time. And I made it in 2019. So I'm happy that it has homes now in these wonderful festivals, and I'm excited to be here with all of you.
Oh, wonderful. Excited to have you as well. And Tessa, if you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your film.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tessa. Pleasure to be here. I'm the director and editor of The Final Stand. The Final Stand is a short documentary, environmental documentary, that was actually created in 1 week from start to finish, basically building awareness on the forestry issues going on with old growth forests in BC. Yeah.
Okay, great. And if you guys can just tell us, how did you get your inspiration to take on this project? We'll start with Athena.
Well, it was interesting because there was a lot of people I knew who were coming out with having been in quite mentally abusive relationships, and I'd written something way back, which nothing happened. It got shortlisted for a couple of writing competitions, and then my friend Liz, who also is starring in it and also the co-producer, came to me with an idea. So we were excited to explore the relationship between mother and daughter, and it was through that we was then kind of found ourselves telling the story of a mental abuse situation. And then the moment we discovered that's what we were dealing with, and we were using our crowdfunding platform to sort of talk about the film, it sort of kind of the reality of women's survivors, really, their stories were sort of feeding into it as well. So it became a kind of a platform to speak about that, that fine line of, how do you believe what someone is saying? Who do you believe? That grey area. And that's really where the courts and the judges find themselves in all the time. Who do you believe when they talk about these things? So we wanted to ask those questions and sort of raise awareness on that, but also tell a gripping story in that. So yeah, I think inspired by the world around us, really. I know that's a bit hammy, but that was kind of it.
And if you can just tell us what was like the reception that you received from the audience or your friends.
Yeah, well, it's been really powerful. So it's been picked up by a couple of charities that deal with that. So we've kind of given the film over to help raise the awareness that they're working with. So they found it really accurate, especially with the Tabitha who plays Grace, her portrayal in in that whole kind of grey lying area. How do you? It's very subtle in the film. We don't really go head on with it, but people have really responded strongly with it. I mean, it's done super well. It's kind of been selected for a number of sort of BAFTA, Oscar qualifying festivals. It's picked up awards. I think we've got about 12 film awards on it already. It's we've really found that, and people coming forward as well, and that's where, you know, it's very exciting to be dealing now to tell this in a bigger format and tell it as a feature where we can really go in and see what happens inside that courtroom, because I don't know what it's like in the US and Canada, but it's a really daunting experience for women who find themselves in that space and quite often lose their children. So the last resort, you know, in our stories is a mother that ducks her child to keep her safe, but of course she's now broken the law, so she's the one that's going to be prosecuted, even though she's coming from an abusive situation. So it's that dichotomy that we're looking at.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same here in the US. And you know, I would think that it's the same all over the world. It's horrible. And, you know, thank you for sharing the film with us to bring more awareness. Before we move on to the other filmmakers with that question, I just want to introduce Will, who just joined us. Hi, how you doing?
Hi, I'm
Introduce
Will
yourself.
Cole. I'm
Mhm.
Meg Allen Cole's partner in marriage as well as production, and she unfortunately is at a long-standing doctor's appointment at the moment, but wanted me to represent for her film since I was as involved as as I guess one could be.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, and if you can just tell us a little bit about the documentary.
Absolutely. The documentary is called Blood and Guts: Exposing Endo. It's a documentary short film that sheds light on the dangerous dismissal of patients' pain that leads to often a decade-long diagnosis delay for this progressive whole body illness called endometriosis. My wife assembled an incredible cast of doctors and advocates. And so she, over the course of, I would say, 4 or 5 years, had documented herself, her medical journey. And so she is bearing all basically to expose the dark and dangerous world that endo patients have to endure and the broken medical system that gaslights and traumatizes, so many people already in crisis. And I'm extremely proud of her.
Oh, thank you for sharing that with us. And Isabel, if you can just tell us what inspired you to make your short film.
Yeah, I mean, when we're making a short film about dating and life and breakups, it's pulled from life usually. And I don't know if other writers can relate to this, but it was something that I sat down for 3 days, wrote something and thought, oh, this might be worth making. There might be something here. And for better or for worse, all of the sort of horrors of it were pretty easily pulled from life. Easily pulled from either hard dating stories of my own or things that I've heard from friends, or like difficult breakups, difficult just levels of pain that I think a lot of women specifically in this case, because it's who I'm speaking for, but I think people in general can feel for. And that's probably been the biggest reception to the film, is that it's funny and it's sweet, and it's some moments are a little over the top, but that there's a way in for everyone. Someone can relate to feeling this way, or feeling really sad, or feeling really happy, or balancing both. And so yeah, that's been fun as it's gone along, just to see where the biggest reception I think is like, oh wow, this is real. This wasn't, rom-coms or dramedies can sometimes be over the top in a fun way, but then you can't really relate to that. So it's been sweet to have people feedback that it felt like, oh, I went through something like that, and yeah, it sucks, and wow, there it is. So yeah.
Yes, I definitely think that it's, of course, something that most people can relate to. And sometimes breakups are very difficult, and sometimes it's hard to go get over them as well. What do you think? Not what do you think? If you can just tell us one of the reasons why you decided to add a little comedy to it.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, in my life, comedy helps. And I think to balance a situation, like you said, that everyone knows, like really hard, painful, kind of life consuming breakups, to be able to balance that with the absurdity that is life. I feel like we've all been in those situations where we're in a terrible mood, or we're depressed, or we're going through something intense, and then life just does something ridiculous and you have absolutely no choice but to be like, okay, I'm going to laugh in this moment because this absolutely absurd thing just happened, even though I'm not feeling it at all. So I think that balance was, to me, just important in a movie. Not that there's anything wrong with just showing sort of the sadness and the anger in a breakup, but to sort of, it helped me to see, oh, there's a light in sad situations, and we can still laugh at ourselves and laugh at each other. And I think it helped me process a lot to throw some comedy in there. And yeah, I think it was important for me to find that balance with it.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. And Tessa, if you can just tell us what was the inspiration for you?
Yeah, so I actually work for a environmental company that creates sustainable products. So we have a lot of partners like 1% for the Planet and Save the Waves, Protect Our Winters. So when I found out what was going on with BC's old growth forests, for those of you that don't know, the government basically gave the okay to log our old growth forests. And it was in our backyard, so it just made sense to use our platform at Pila and kind of bring awareness to the issue going on, because it's a bit of a time-sensitive issue. And the more awareness we can bring to it, the more people will know, and power in numbers.
Okay. And do you think, since you made the short, there's a little bit more awareness of what's going on?
Yeah, actually, while we were editing, we actually got the NDP government in BC stated a 2-year deferral for what was going on the island. And although they said that, it brought a lot of heat down from people being like outraged about what was going on. But there was like an underlying message that they were actually still logging there. It's just like they found a loophole and they were able to publicize to the media that there was going to be a deferral, but it's still going on. So there's still people protesting. It's been over a year now, and they're still looking for all the help they can get. So.
Oh, wow. Do you feel the need to have like a follow-up documentary?
Yeah, definitely. It's been in the talks. So hopefully now that it's fall, we can get back there and do a part 2.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing that. And let me see, Will, your name is Will, right? Just want to make sure.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Oh, okay, thank you. And if you can just tell us what was the inspiration to make a documentary?
Well, I know Meg really didn't intend for it to become a documentary. That the project sort of evolved and became that. She was dealing with a number of sort of mysterious medical issues, going to doctor after doctor, not really getting any answers, being sort of sent around to different specialists. And I was with her pretty much 90% of the time, and it was just crazy. She was just like, no one would believe this if I told them, so I may as well document it. And what kind of started off as a 5-minute sort of short became a half an hour documentary short, and it just kind of came together after a number of years and 2 surgeries and countless specialists. It kind of took on a life of its own, and she was fortunate enough to have a lot of great cast members too, both of her endometriosis excision surgeons, as well as a number of advocates and authors that have done sort of plant-based living in ways to help with endometriosis pain management. That's like I said, Meg is currently at a doctor's appointment because this is a chronic illness, and it's been although she has improved, it's been a journey that she continues to trudge along with. And but I am it's been a really incredible experience for both of us, and it was very healing for her, this whole process, I know.
Okay, and what has the response been with the documentary? Has she been contacted by other doctors or organizations?
She has some connections with an Endo Foundation and a number of others. We put the video up on a website on endomission.org, and along with a number of resources. And the contact form has been, sort of blowing up her mailbox. She's been just hearing from a lot of patients, people that think they have it, people who had very similar experiences. And so it's interesting on a personal level. She has like a part-time job of helping people direct them, to the right resources, because there are a number of dangerous paths that one can go down if you are working with somebody that is not familiar with endometriosis.
Oh, of course. And I know that that there's a lot of people I've seen, like online, there's a lot of people that, they go to the doctor and they say they have pain, and a lot of times they dismiss what they're going through. And I'm sure that's very difficult. And, thank you so much for sharing this film with us. And I hope it opens more light and get more people involved. And if you can just tell us the website so that people can go on and, possibly watch the film or get more information.
Absolutely. The website is endomission, ENDO mission.org. And the video is up there, some information about Meg, the other cast members, and some resources that include the foundations. There's sort of dietary help that can be found there. A lot of pain management is linked to diet. There's just a number of books, articles, podcasts, blogs, stuff like that to help people, whether you think you have it or you have a surgery coming up and need to figure out the best heating pad and comfort items like that. So it's pretty exhaustive. Endomission.org is the website.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. And if you guys can just tell us some of the challenges that you face while making your projects, and if you learned anything from the challenges that you can share with audiences or new filmmakers. I'll start with you, Athena.
Okay, so the first challenge was raising the money, because we didn't, getting the finance for any film is always a challenge. And I think what we learned was not giving up and just kind of being on message with what we had to say. And so that was kind of, that's what's inspired us really to carry on, is that the money came. Even when we didn't know where from, we knew it would come, and it did. And then the other more physical challenge was the fact that we were filming on this island in the middle of a storm in February, and we just had to trust that the weather was going to be kind to us. And we were very lucky. But so the day that we needed it to be sunshine, the sun came out and the wind dropped, so we could do the drones and we can do go out to sea, because the winds were like 60 miles an hour, and then so we couldn't do anything that we want, but we were okay in those days that we were filming things we needed to film. But then we had one day that we scheduled for all of these exterior shots with no winds and sunshine, and that's what happened. So I think the project was quite blessed. It could have been disastrous. We had a moment where our Steadicam was running and felt, we scanned the ground, but actually there was a rabbit hole where he managed to put his foot in, and you could see this £100,000 camera with £60,000 lenses just kind of slowly go. But also his feet, his foot, you thought, oh my God, if he sprains his ankle, that's him out of work, But thank God nothing happened, and we were able to carry on filming. I don't know, I think the angels were with us. I really do, because so much could have gone wrong and it didn't. So I think I learned just have faith.
Oh, great. What platform did you use?
To crowdfund?
Yes, crowdfund.
Yeah, well, it was a new platform that I met a guy at an event who was starting it, called Greenlit. So they were only focused on film, and now they do film and theatre and music as well. and they were amazing because they didn't just sort of kind of let you just put your project on the platform. They gave you also space to talk about it, so they would do Facebook Lives, and they would do all sorts of other events around it that really broadened your audience base. I mean, we raised 10,000, which was, you know, quite amazing, really, because you know your first 1,000 is the people you know who feel like obliged to give you some money, but actually when you break through that that audience and you actually get the people who have an stake in that story or have an investment, you know, who want to have that story told, that's when it gets exciting, and that's when it sort of, it feels like you're serving the project rather than just sort of making a film, you know, for the hell of it. So it was kind of, it was very exciting to kind of grow with the project, really. Yeah, it was a great platform. I totally recommend it, and they only take 5%.
Okay, that's not too bad.
Yeah, I mean, Indiegogo for us, because it's a US company, is like 25% after you take bank charges and everything. So it's quite a lot when you know your budgets are quite tight on a short film. They're not, you know, you're begging, borrowing, and stealing to get it made, and a lot of love. And, you know, it's not
Okay.
easy.
And what was the reason that you chose the island to shoot your film?
You know what? I'd never been, but it's quite far flung, and it's a place that I think that if you were to run away, and you didn't need a passport, you could go there. No one will find you because it's not on anyone's radar. It's like a really strange place that it's sort of self-governed, but it's part of the UK, and it's sort of, I just, you know, it just sounded exotic. We hadn't gone, but funnily enough, we were so we were filming there, and then I got a phone call from the man who had the platform and said, "Oh, have you heard of this organisation, the Isle of Media? They organise filming on the island." I went, "Oh no." So I checked them out, and they happened to be having an event in London the next day, out of the coincidences of things. So we went along, and then we just turned up, and they, you know, they welcomed us with open arms and took us round and made it really easy for us, really, once we were there. So, and we were able to get a bit more money by shooting there because nobody knows it. So they wanted people to know about it.
Oh, thank you.
I think it was
That's
literally
amazing.
your
Thank you.
instinct. I think that's the thing. Just go with your gut. And wherever that takes you is always going to be an adventure.
And Will, if you can share with us some of the obstacles that you guys faced during the documentary.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as like technical and production obstacles, we were fortunate in that Meg had been doing video production for a number of years. We had equipment, we had the know-how. I assisted with some editing as well, but she had been used to doing DIY videos, and so this was sort of a DIY documentary for the most part. The challenges lay in the medical field, unfortunately, getting answers. That's where all the all the issues and the problems and challenges lay. Financially, you know, like I said, it was a DIY sort of shoestring budget for the film. The main expenses were, again, for doctors and specialist visits that are often not covered by insurance, and so that's where the financial burden was placed.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing that. And Isabel?
Yeah, I feel quite lucky actually that the list of challenges were pretty low. You know, I can't say I was filming on an island in a storm in February. We had quite a long pre-production period, late July through November. So in terms of challenges, I think just assembling the people that you want to work with, and I know for myself, I have a bit of a heavy hand when it comes to sort of like producing and directing, and I just want to make sure everything is as amazing as it can be. And I really lucked out. I had just the most astounding crew and cast, and people just really willing to play and participate on an incredibly low budget. Shoestring, I love that word. That's like a perfect way to describe it. I wouldn't even say ultra low budget. I think it goes below that. So yeah, in terms of challenges, long days, long pre-production, moments of, will this street that we're shooting on without a permit let us shoot here? But other than that, very, very lucky to just have such a strong cast and crew who just, like I said, we're just open to play. And that, to me, making anything comedy or drama is just the most exciting part. So I feel very lucky.
And how was it being an actor producing it as well?
It was a lot. I definitely have learned, I think acting and writing is a combination that I feel comfortable with, and one that I've been doing for a while. And then throwing in the directing and the producing on top of it was a choice that I made. But I had a really strong assistant director and my DP. Both were pretty much directing with me. They were my eyes. I'm in every scene of the film. I can't be watching at the same time. So it felt like a really collaborative experience in that way, and was great to get, my DP is a 70-year-old man who doesn't know the perils of being a millennial going through a breakup, but is one of the most incredible cinematographers that I know, and just could offer a different lens on something. And because he maybe didn't know a certain thing or a certain reference or whatever, could look at it and be like, oh, that actually doesn't work. And only because I knew it in my head, or because, I'm in my 20s and the other people on set are in their 20s as well, maybe didn't see it in that light or see it from that perspective. So that was really quite fun. So yeah, it felt like a really collaborative, all hands-on filmmaking process.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. And Will, I believe your wife, she was the producer, the writer, and the director as well?
Yes, like I said, she basically did it all herself. For the most part, this was, documenting her journey over the course of 4 or 5 years, and then reached out to, specialists and surgeons and advocates via Zoom. I guess that was one challenge that COVID presented, was not being able to do those interviews in person. But she was the star, the writer, the producer, the patient, everything. I had. I don't want to take any credit for involvement. I did some minor editing, but Meg was, the engine behind all of this.
And how difficult was that? Or it was sort of like a breeze?
Was not a breeze. Like I said, wasn't really intended to be a full documentary short, when, it was more just for her own mental state and sanity, and just to kind of keep track of what was going on. So there wasn't as much pressure, I think, in the earlier days. I think as we got closer to realizing what the final form was going to take, we wanted to roll this out in March for Endometriosis Awareness Month. But the production aspect it just felt natural to her, I know.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. And Tessa, what are some of the challenges that you faced while you were filming your project?
Where do I begin? So our biggest challenge, I'm going to say, was time. When Fairy Creek started building steam and we found out about it, we just booked our flights. It was just me and another filmmaker. We knew we were going to be on the ground for 2 full days to shoot. We had no idea what to expect when we got there. There was no service on Fairy Creek, because we had to stay about an hour away from where the action was happening. So we could only get service if we drove back to our hotel. Also, permission to film was a big blocker for us, because the campsites, there was several campsites where people were basically protecting the forest. And getting permission to film the actual contraptions of how they were stopping the RCMP from coming in, we weren't allowed to. But we wanted to kind of tell the story, and it was hard when people see a camera, they're like, you're not allowed to film. And it's no, we're on your side. We want to raise awareness for this. So it was tough, but we ended up working it out. Another big thing off the top of my head was finding people to speak on what was going on. So we wanted to find voices that were really knowledgeable and were kind of experts in the space and can tell the story from a science background or a First Nations background. So yeah, it was just like a kind of just on the ground finding people and like not being able to use our phones to try and like set up interviews or anything. And we were just word of mouth trying to find the people we were looking for. It was difficult. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. And if you guys could just share with us if there's anything that you learned while filming your project or even afterwards, that would be great. Again, I'm going to start with Athena.
I don't know. I think you're always learning, aren't you? You're finding your voice as a filmmaker, you're finding your collaborators as well, and the people that you want to work with. It's so important to have people who you get on with and you enjoy being with as well, because you've got to enjoy it. It's not, everyone's got to have a good time, I think, because we're not doing it for the money. And so I think when there is, especially with narrative fiction, where you've got a team, to build the right team. So that's something that's nice, because you build up your peer group and you can think of into the future with them as well. So yeah, I think having learned that, I think that's wonderful. You become better, don't you, at working.
And Will?
Well, I know we both certainly learned a lot about the medical industry, first the medical side and the, insurance and red tape side. But I think one of the things that we learned is just how prevalent both endometriosis and chronic illnesses are in general, and just the dismissal of pain, like how I witnessed firsthand like how challenging it was for her to like get help. The doctors would sometimes look at me, ask a question to her and look at me for an answer, or I literally saw a doctor brush off comments that she made that he thought were unrelated to migraines and stuff like that. So it's just amazing like how hard you have to work as a patient. It's basically a full-time job. I was happy to be her medical advocate, but we also learned just how much worse it is for people of color, and how much worse it is for the trans population that born with ovaries and reproductive system can develop endometriosis. So it's just, if my wife always says, if I, a privileged white woman had this much trouble, it took me 10 years to get diagnosed, like what is happening to these other girls. So it was certainly an eye-opening learning experience.
I did see that in your film, and I could just imagine, like, if you don't have insurance or good medical insurance, it's probably just as worse for patients. And have you guys tried reaching out to the government, any politicians that want to help?
Meg she had a friend or a contact that had worked with Elizabeth Warren, who had been working on some endometriosis awareness and funding bills in the past. She was going to tap some local connections as well with some of our high school friends who are now in positions of influence. But yeah, that there's still a lot of work to be done for sure.
Okay, I hope everything works out, and I hope your wife is okay. Isabel?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I learned is just to sort of trust that the work that's been done will stand and will speak for itself. It was my first time sort of running a set, and trusting the things that I had done. And, it's very easy, I think, especially as like a young female filmmaker, to have imposter syndrome thoughts, to think maybe I'm not doing it the right way because I'm doing it for the first time, but to just remember that every day there was a full set of people there because they wanted to be there, because they liked the project, because they thought it was worth their time and their energy and their talent. And so that was just huge for me, to just, if something's rolling, trust it and let it happen. And things will go wrong and things will be hard, and just to really let it happen. And that's sort of the beauty of film, I think, that we all if we all trust each other on set and we all trust that we're making something that is exciting, because you can totally feel that in a room, when people are there and want to be there. And even if it's 3 a.m. and they had to go all the way to downtown LA to, whatever the combination of things is for people to show up and be excited, was really special to see for something that I'd written and thought was fun. So yeah, that'll be definitely what I take as I hopefully continue to make my own work, is that if people are there and people have showed up, it's worth making, and to not sell ourselves short. Because again, I think that's pretty easy to do, especially, I know I said it already, but like a young woman in the industry, just sort of doing it for the first time and figuring it out as I go. There's a lot that I can convince myself I was doing incorrectly or didn't know enough about. But in the end, we made a movie, and, here I am talking about it. So it's been really fun to sort of do that in real time.
Great. And what about you, Tessa?
Looking back, this should have been more obvious to me, but I feel like I didn't see this project as a normal film. It was the first time for me doing a documentary, let alone like an environmental documentary. So I didn't do the extra steps of location scouting and like taking the extra days to really get like sorted with what I know is coming up. I kind of just was so excited to tell this story, and I wanted to get it out as soon as possible. So it was just a quick get there, get what I need, come back, go through the edit, like gave myself very little time to get everything done. And although I'm so happy with what we created, and like I think the film is really beautiful, I think there definitely could have been more time that I put into it, especially in pre-production.
Oh, thank you. And if you guys can just share with us if you're currently working on new projects, and also where people can find you, your websites, your social media handle. Athena?
Yes, so my Twitter handle is Athena_Mandis, and we've got one also for Losing Grace, the film. At the moment, I've got another short film that is also going around the festivals called Daughter, which we shot last September in lockdown. Well, we had a little window when we sort of were allowed to go out, and we went and made a film. And at the moment we're turning Losing Grace into a feature with a view to shoot it in June. So we've got an amazing LA producer on board, and we're really excited. So yeah, a lot on.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And Will, any new projects, or do you guys plan on doing a documentary, a follow-up, and also where we can find you and Meg?
Absolutely. There are no, final plans for a part 2, but there is plenty of material out there. And like I said, this is an ongoing journey. So yeah, we may very well see a follow-up of some sort. As far as where you can find it online, endomission.org is the website where you can watch the video. There is an Instagram account, Blood Guts Exposing Endo, where you can, follow some stuff specific to the film. And Meg Allen Cole is her handle, ALLAN, Allen, and she's pretty prominent on the internet, so you should have no problem finding her handles and her personal material.
Thank you. And Isabel?
In terms of things coming up, now that I feel the world is reopening a little bit, excited to some things that have been, writing or sort of under the cover a little, to actually think about doing them. But that's a big TBD. There's an Instagram for the film. It's The Perfect Week Film. And then my Instagram is Izzy, actually, Izzie Schnall, my last name.
Oh, thank you. And Tessa?
In terms of current projects, I primarily work on commercials, so no films right now, but that's definitely the plan for the future. You can find my social media on Instagram at Tess, just TESS.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you have time, the films will be up until Sunday at 11:59. Will, I hope your wife is doing good, and I hope everything works out. Thank you so much.
Thank you.